A lot for your families. We streaming from two different places, so bear with me. But a lot for your Picado, a Boru, a Boye, a Bosheshe, a Yeo. A lot of people have been asking me to do this video um, about my ideology about life, death, heaven, hell, the transition of all. So, with all faith that this video gives you understanding and comfort with the inevitable fact that one day you're going to die. I would like to start off by saying I do not claim to have the ultimate tongue, meaning what I have to say is not the only thing to say. A couple of things you need to understand before we start off about death. Death is inevitable. You will die one day. Your body cannot stop you from dying. Your family cannot stop you from dying. You have been dying since the day you have been born. 1,000 particles of you, more than 1,000, probably millions of particles of you today have died. It's a continuous cycle. It's nothing to be afraid of. It is continuous. The first things I want to start off by talking about is Ifa. We're going to talk about Buddhism. I want to talk about Ifa first, just quickly, to bring you to the metaphor stage with me. They say, it's part of a padiki of the Odu, and they say that before you came to Earth, you had a court session. This court session involved Oremila, it involved Oludumare. Some people believe that it involved Olorun and Olofin as well. During this court session, you pleaded your case. Whether you believe it or not, a lot of different cultures believe that you decided to come here. Maybe it was to save your mom, maybe it was just part of your Ori and your destiny, but you decided to come here. So you had to plead your case to these deities so they can grant you permission to leave the heavenly celestial realm, correct? So once they passed you, Olomade said, all right, good plan, go ahead. Let's say whatever, however long you was in your mother's room, 7, 8, 9 months, that's how long it took your spirit to get here to the earth. During this journey, on this path, other deities made themselves present to you. These deities came to you and was like, hey, look, you exhausted, you tired, you thirsty. This is a journey. You've been going for months. And this is how miscarriages happen. This is how spiritually abortions happen. But the spirits tell you like, yo, you're not going to make it, but we got some water for you. You're thirsty. But if you don't take the water, you're not going to make it. But the only way to get the water is you have to give up a resource. Now, this resource in this example I'm going to give you could be memory of that last life. Give us your memory, you will make it. But you got to give up that memory. So many of us gave it up. And that's why we don't remember nothing. But we came here, correct? Keep that in mind. Now, before I was in Ifa, I was a Buddhist. And I went to a temple and a monk told me this parable. The monk began to tell me that when you die, you're going to go back to that path, that realm, that tunnel that it took you 9 months to come through. You're going to have to go back through that tunnel. During this tunnel is when you experience that white light. Let's pause on the white light. We see that white light 2 times in life. They also, as a human, you will also experience DMT 2 times naturally in life. Once when you are born, they say a DMT blast in the pineal gland is released. Give or take different glands of the mind. They say this DMT blast is released during the embryogenesis of the baby being born. And this is when you come out of the vaginal canal and you are conceived and you see that white light, you're birthed. Immediately, what the Buddhists call dukkha, which is suffering, begins. Correct? Life is endless suffering. Keep in mind. This is when you see that first white light. This is when you've received that first DMT blast. The next time you see that white light and you receive a DMT blast is when you die. That click moment when your soul exits. Another blast of the mind will happen, the embryogenesis. so to speak, will turn off. The spirit will leave. This is when you start seeing that white light again. You go back through that tunnel. At this point in time, those deities show up again. This is why, if you believe in Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Orishas, whoever, it doesn't really matter. Who you believed in as a human, who you put energy and belief and faith in during this experience, energetically and spiritually of heart and mind, will manifest themselves in this dimension. So these deities will come back and see you. Could be Jesus, could be whoever, right? Whoever you create in this. They come back to see you. This is when you go through the second court, because you've got a second court date. This court date is when you go through the life review. You review the good, you review the bad. And I mean every single inch of good and every single inch of bad. The time you lied, the time you cheated, the time you stole something, the time you were successful, the time you gave money to the homeless, the time you adopted. All of these will be measured and weighed. Sometimes they speak about the heart and the feather. This is that realm, explained in many different ways. If your heart is heavier than the feather, you go here. If the feather, you go there, etc. During this life review, remember I said they gave you a decision. You coming here was the decision. So your transitional period later will also be a decision based on that court date. Now, other deities and entities got power in this, in decision making, but your decisions matter. So during that life review, if you have regret, remorse, feeling like the things that you did was not elected, you're going to come back. You're going to go through that reincarnation stage, especially if you committed suicide, if you were killed violently. You have to come back. You have to come back and complete that mission based on that decision and accomplish it spiritually. But if you are acceptable to it, then you transition to that next place. Now, the next couple components that I want us to remember is just about Buddhism terms in general, right? They call it Anita, or sometimes it's Anika. This is impermeable self, correct? This is the self that it's impermanence, correct? The other self is the anatta, right? This is the non-changing self. So you have a self that is not permanent. It changes, correct? And the anatta is the non-changing self. But we must understand that you are not this. You are not the body. You are not even who you think you are. And this is what those two terms is trying to get you to see, correct? You think you're so much your body, right? But if your fingernail comes off, is it you anymore? You can lose your arm, but you're still the self. You're still the I. They say that the I, right? The I is not the thing. Everything is always changing. Everything is always evolving. The cup is not the tea, but the liquid inside, correct? But it's interchangeable. So if you take the cup and pour the tea back into the pitcher, it doesn't change the tea, but it changes the condition of the cup. Is the cup now useless? Was it ever a part of the tea? Even though without the cup, you don't have the tea. And this is the thin line between who you are, what you're doing here, and what will stay, what is even in existence, and what will transition. We must understand that things here everything is connected, right? The star is connected to the plant is connected to you are connected to the air is connected to the stars. Everything is connected. They call it Sanyavada. In Sanyavada, they mean the empty view, right? This is the independentness of self, the one of self, but the one of self is that true I, but the I is everything. The I is the tea and the cup. And this is the life and the death. You can't have one without the other. So you have to build up an understanding of both. The thing about life is you experience in multiple forms, two forms. The thing about death is that you think that you experience it in two forms, but you only experience it in one form once you transition to that state. But we mentally create what death could possibly be, what it could, when it could happen, which those was back to the first components I said. This part of the first components. We have no type of understanding of when it will happen, how it will happen, or why it will happen. Your parents can't change it. Your body can't change it. The human body is very vulnerable. The human body doesn't live long compared to like trees. So we have to keep this in mind that what we are experiencing is not permanent whatsoever. And we deal with the basic conscious, subconscious thought of that, knowing every day when you wake up, it's one step closer to that day. Sometimes we subconsciously know it, sometimes we consciously pin on it. But the beauty of it is that if you did not wake up, you do not have the experience of death to look forward to. Because if you do not wake up, you are already in that realm. Remember, everything is connected. So by you waking up gives even the existence of death. See what I'm saying here? So death is a part of life, just like breathing. You know, subconsciously, your body knows that it must breathe. Your body knows that it must leave one day too. It's the mind that makes the trouble. Once again, if you do not have an understanding of death, meditation is pointless. When you are meditating, this is the components you need to be getting a comfortability with. Knowing that it could happen in the next 5 minutes and having a peaceful, harmonious level with that. Like I say, Sanyamvada, right? This is an independent self. This is a view of the emptiness. Life is nothing but emptiness. This is peace. This is what monks are tapping into. The understanding of who gives a damn in layman's terms. Who cares? I had no control over living, like being birthed. It was a conceptual thing as far as the human body. I'm speaking about the human body, not the spiritual decision making, the human body. This body that we fall in love with so much, seeing that we think is the I had no control over making it. That was from my mom and my father, right? My mother and my father had that deal. They created a human body spiritually, which is not attached because everything is connected, but everything is independent and everything is empty and inexistent and non-existent. So the spirit and the body is different, we know. This is the angle, correct? So we must keep in mind of these different things. When we get to understanding the transition, like we must be in acceptance. Like we just not saying be a slave to the thought, but you must accept it. You have to gain a comfortability with it. It's going to come. So until that day, your whole process is understanding the components that we laid out, how to be empty, how to accept that I had no control over coming, and I'm going to have no control over leaving. I am here to exist until I exist no longer. And in the middle of that existence, I will experience. And true experience comes from the thin line between consciousness and subconsciousness, which is found during that true meditation. This is why Kundalini meditations and Kundalini energy is so volatile and so dangerous. This is why unlocking and unblocking the third eye is so dangerous, because this is where the conundrums come in the mind of thinking. You're thinking about death to the point to where you want to control it, or you don't want it to happen, so you become fearful of the experience. But in general, just like breathing, just like drinking water, just like sleeping, just like sexual intercourse, just like reproduction, These are natural essences of life that we all don't get to experience. But one thing for sure is that birth and death in the human body form of the I and the spiritual body having a human experience, it is inevitable. So your job is to make sure you don't get killed, you don't kill yourself, you don't build up bad so-called karma, bad vibrations, what we call EB, bad fortune, and that you keep your heart, mind, and peaceful body intact of understanding that nothing matters anyway. Why are you using anger and fueling evil? Why are you pressing so hard for goodness? Just simply be and accept. This usually is a very critical stage because a weak mind can become a slave. Understand? But you must understand the ideology of being a slave to something. I'm not talking about the emotional race thing. I'm talking about slavery to a spiritual energy, correct? You can become a slave to the life, or just like you can become a slave to the death. But it has to be a balance between the two of just understanding. And once again, my job is not to make you understand. My job is to provoke thought. So once again, talking about dukkha, that as soon as we are born, it is immediate continuous suffering, correct? Your human experience is to experience that suffering from the moment you are conceived to the moment you leave and balance the experience. So I didn't want to draw too long on this topic because we will be speaking about it more coming up. And put in the comments if you want me to speak more about anatta and anicca. Remember I was speaking about the impermanent body, the non-changing body, etc. We might release more videos on that later on, but I just want to take time to speak about this, and that like I say, in faith I try to get you an understanding, or to provoke thought towards an understanding that one day we're all going to transition, and there's nothing to be afraid of, but something just to prepare for. Correct? So, for anyone who is interested in the next levels of the class, we are on Patreon, African Traditional Religion Academy on Patreon. We are starting the classes up pretty soon here. No matter what time you are viewing this video, you can join the class. Just send us an email and we'll let you know if seats is available or when seats open up. Get you on the waiting list. Correct? So we also will be going live again on YouTube. So on Spirit Guides. So maybe we'll speak about this as well. I appreciate everyone who purchased the Power of Alkaline book for the first week. We're closing out. I appreciate all the support. Anybody who came to the private class 2 weeks ago, I appreciate all the support. Anyone who sent in that poll as well, it helped out a lot. So hopefully, once again, that this video helps you out. I hope that I left some information out here for you. Share Bakun.